Hi, everyone. Welcome to Spill the Tea Radio, where we interview awesome singers, songwriters, and those who influence their lives. Spill the Tea Radio explores a journey, creativity, and inspiration behind the songs. My next guest is a self-confessed musicaholic. He is a six-time nominee for Publicist of the Year and has overseen the publicity campaigns for over 155 Juno Award nominated albums. His client list is a who's who in the music business: Ringo Starr, Bob Geldof, Carole King, The Guess Who, Kim Mitchell, and hundreds more. If his voice is familiar, you've probably heard him on SiriusXM channel 167 with his show At That Eric Alper Show. So let's spill the tea with Eric Alper. Welcome, Eric.
Ba-da-ba-ba. Oh, you don't have a theme? Oh, there's no theme song.
Theme music plays just before.
Yeah, okay.
We put it in post.
Okay. All right.
Listen, it's so good to have you on the show. Thanks
That's a
so much
lovely introduction. Thanks. That's all the time I have. So
that's it. We're going to wrap it up.
Yep.
And I know you represent so many great people. We've had the pleasure of interviewing a good number on the show already, and
Thank
more
you.
keep coming. So thank you for that, first of all.
Thank you for giving them the space.
Eric, I would imagine, when you were growing up, so it's like when you were in your teens, one thing you wanted to do is to become a publicist. I'm sure that you told your parents that. How did you get into this crazy music business?
I actually wanted to become the drummer for Genesis, but Phil Collins was already doing that. But yeah, I wanted to be a rock and roll star. I thought it looked, and I now know it still is, the coolest job in the world. My grandfather had a bar in Toronto called Grossman's Tavern, and the bar is still standing. It's on Spadina Avenue, just around where Kensington Market is. And even though that he sold it in the 1970s, I remember going there as a kid. And seeing the bands play live, and going through my grandparents and my aunt's records and my parents' records and my older sister's records, and just fascinated by the look of the artists, because almost as important as the actual listening to the records, I like looking at them. I like looking at what they wore and their shoes and their clothes and the videos and them live. And I think most people, when they think about it, that's really what we love about our pop and rock stars or rap stars or anybody else. So I was kind of fascinated with that. And then when I was a teenager, I got a subscription to Billboard magazine for my birthday, because that's all I wanted. And it wasn't so that I can memorize the charts, even though that was kind of the offset of it. What I really wanted to do was find out more about how the industry operated, because this was like my Star Wars. This was a world that I had no idea who was involved with it or even how to get into it. But I was fascinated with the stories of the industry. What was a booking agent? What did they do? Where did they make their money? How did they become popular? What record labels did really, really well? What made Motown a great record label, or Atlantic Records or Bell Records, and other ones just kind of taper off? And so the more that I loved reading about the industry, the more I wanted to get involved with it. So I knew that I had no musical talent whatsoever, and I still don't. And even if you put me in a studio, I wouldn't know the first thing about what to do. I don't understand how music works. I don't.
Really?
I really don't. And that's the magical thing of it. That's the one thing that I hold dear, is that all these people are magicians to me about how they make inanimate objects sing and work, and how producers and engineers do what they do. I don't really care about all of that, because I'm still coming at it from a fan perspective. And when I work with the media, I can go a little bit inside baseball about the technical aspects of it, but I know that their readers don't care, except if you're like a massive Beatles fan and you're reading a Beatles book or a story. That's where you want to find out how George Martin got certain guitar parts to, hear it backwards, all that stuff. But most of the people don't really know or care how music actually works. They just want to know how it makes them feel. And so I never lost sight of while I was reading all that stuff about how those songs and the artists make me feel. And when I graduated university, I listed a bunch of things for that I could do, and all of them were based in music, and one of them was a record label. So I did that. That turned into a booking agency and a label, and then that turned into a publicity company. And then I just ditched everything else and did PR because it was my favorite thing to do. I couldn't wait till artists got on the road so I can work with the media on stories and booking interviews and trying to get the videos played on Much Music or the songs played on the radio, and then later on send the MP3s to MP3 blogs, and now sending Spotify and YouTube links to the media. So I got to do what I wanted to do since I was a kid.
What is your job as a publicist
Oh
and public
God, if I
relations
know.
person?
Um,
Because I ask artists, I say, have you considered, hiring a publicist to get your name out there? And they said, well, I don't really know what they do. So help
yeah.
us understand what's the root job.
Yeah, the publicist's job is to be the liaison between the media and the artist. The publicist has the contact and the connections and the know-how to get your music heard by radio stations, by television stations, by media outlets like newspapers and blogs and magazines. So they've been working with these media outlets for years, sometimes in my case, decades, to know not to waste anybody's time servicing a hip hop song to somebody that we know for sure just doesn't cover hip hop. So we give them the best foot forward to at least try to get that email open, because most media outlets don't really want to hear from artists simply because they don't want to really, in some cases, not all, but in some cases they don't want to deal with 1,500 artists a week. They want to
Mhm.
deal sometimes with 7 publicists that have access to 200 artists or collectively. So it's our job to kind of get the music heard and seen and telling their story. A lot of the times the artist just simply doesn't know what the media might be looking for at that moment. A story idea might be hot. A There might be a thread or something going viral that we can latch onto for this brand new artist. It could be something like hitting 1 million streams on Spotify or 1 million views on YouTube. The artist may not know that that's a really big deal, or
Mhm.
conversely, the artist may think that that's a big deal, hitting 50,000 streams when 10 years ago it might have, but not really anymore. So the publicist is kind of like the best person to kind of tell your story on your behalf, so they can concentrate on doing what they do best, which is creating the music in the first place.
I know people are going to find this hard to believe, but there is more than one publicist out there, other
Oh
than
yeah,
yourself.
yeah.
Um, and and artists are wondering, like, how do I know? How do I know which one to work with? What's the criteria I should be? What should somebody be looking for in a publicist?
Yeah, I think, there's three things that I always think of during the day is the price and what they've done in the past and who they've worked with. I know I'm pretty affordable compared to other publicists in Canada and in the US. And the reason why is because I don't have a staff because I don't need it. It's just me.
Hmm.
I don't want a staff. I don't want somebody junior working an artist that needs the level of respect and determination and value of having somebody like me work them. So I don't want to pass it off to somebody else. The second reason why I'm affordable is because I don't look to artists for money. I'm good. Like, I've been doing this for a long time. I'm not looking to pay off my mortgage. I'm not looking to take 17 vacations in UK places. Like, I don't need that. Um, and I think the last thing is, and I see it more and more these days, not necessarily on the publicist side of things, except for the really desperate ones, but I see this more on the Spotify promotion side, where if somebody is guaranteeing you anything, they either own the outlet that they're guaranteeing or that they're just outright lying. Nobody can guarantee anything. So I would say just kind of do the research and see what kind of releases that they're getting, and know that in most cases, just because they're getting e-talk or the front page of the Toronto Star or a story in Rolling Stone magazine, it doesn't mean that they're going to get that for you. Every artist is completely different. If you're a member of the BIPOC community, you're going to get different outlets. If you're a member of the LGBTQIA community, those are different outlets that I can go after. If you're Indigenous, those are different outlets. Those three kind of communities are punching well above their weight than what they used to be doing 10 years ago, because people have wised up and realized that those communities have been underappreciated and undervalued and um under media, like, you know, and underrepresented in the last like decade or so. So every song is different. A song from a pop artist that takes 22 seconds to get to the chorus is going to get a much different reaction than a prog rock band whose single is 11 minutes long. Doesn't mean that either of them are better. It just means that the comparison world, I it's why I never guarantee anything. All I can guarantee is that I'm going to do the work. I'm going to get you a really great press release. I'm going to make sure that your photos are great. I'm going to make sure that your story is told. And I'm going to try to get that email opened. And opening up that email is the first 100 yards of the marathon that I do with the artist.
You mentioned about cost, and I'm not asking you to divulge your price list. How does a publicist come up with a cost for an artist?
I wish I knew. Um, I- when I first started, in 1996, the the most expensive publicist on average was about $1,000 a month. The most the biggest one I saw was $10,000 a month, minimum 3 months.
Wow.
And that was a publicist who I still have the utmost respect for, and she was one of the biggest in Canada. I was charging $100 a month, mostly because I was new, and mostly because I was still making my mistakes. So I didn't want to bring the band with me if I made them. Like, we were all learning, and I wanted to be affordable enough so that the indie band that was playing on an open mic night on a Tuesday night, I could work with them if I liked them. I never wanted the cost of myself to be a hinder to us working together. And I still have that value. Um, when I asked that publicist who was charging $10,000 a month for 3 months, how is it that later on, like about a year or two, they said, how is it that I'm getting more for my independent artist than you're getting for your artists that are getting $10,000? How can you justify that? And I didn't say it in a mean, like Grinch way. I was like, tell me how you can justify that price, and that how I can keep undervaluing my stuff, but not feeling like you're being insulted by it. And I just said it like that, like, because we were joking around. And she said something fascinating to me. She said, because I only need 6 artists a year to pay for my yearly salary that I want to give myself, you have to come up with 250 artists. And she kind of said that as a light bulb moment and truth, but that really excited me.
Mhm.
Like, it kind of turned into the opposite effect about what we were having the conversation about, because then I realized I think I'll be okay working 250 artists, because not everybody gets Entertainment Tonight in the US. Not everybody gets Rolling Stone. And I knew that. So why not work the Wiggles in the morning and Guar in the afternoon and Ringo Starr at night, and then work the East Coast first thing in the morning at 6 o'clock in the morning, and then work the West Coast at midnight? Why not have it all? The artists want it all. Why can't I have it all? So my price is wholly justifiable. I know I can charge more. I just don't want to, because
Mhm.
there are some artists and some bands out there that I love that I know are working, or they're in school, or they're living at home, or they're living out, and that I never wanted the Publicist to be the biggest line listing in their budget ever, ever, ever. It's not like that I don't think that we don't deserve it, because we do. I just never wanted to play life like that. I never wanted to do things for money. Never.
So on the cost, and for everybody listening, you charge more than $100 a month now.
I barely.
Barely. How does an artist justify a return on investment for a publicist? Because
That's super tough.
when I talk to the artist, I say, "Why don't you have a publicist?" "Oh, I can't afford them." And I don't know what that means. I can't afford it. It just means that they haven't justified it in their own minds. So how does an artist justify it?
It's changed so much in the last decade. When an artist gets 1 million streams on Spotify, they get $4,000 to the rights holders. That could be divided up between their distributor, the other band members, the manager, the record label, sometimes the booking agent. And it's not a lot of money to be divided up in the first place. But it is more than sometimes, in most cases, the artist would actually make 25 years ago, before Spotify and before social media and before YouTube, because that artist would not have been able to even manufacture CDs because the price was just so high for them. So,
Mhm.
you know, 2024 has leveled the playing field a lot, and I get it. I get the artist responses to something like Spotify. They're making 0.0004 cents a stream. Answer to that is that then you're not good enough in the world eyes to be making money. Once you put your music out there, you just don't know what is going to happen to it. So the justification has kind of changed a little bit, because if you're going out on tour, you can say, well, all I need to do is help you sell 6 tickets on this tour and it pays for itself.
Mm.
Or I can help you get enough media attention that maybe sometime down the road, you'll get a licensing um, email from CBC or CTV or some Netflix show, and they'll offer you $65,000 for the use of your film, for the song in their film, or $500 justifies and pays for itself.
Mhm.
Um, if I can get you on breakfast television and that's 4 minutes for you to perform your song or do an interview with you, um, breakfast television charges anywhere between, a couple $1,000s to tens of thousands of dollars per minute for ad rates. That's almost $50,000 worth of free advertising. So that justifies it. So it all depends on what they're kind of thinking about. But what they really, really want right now is, can you make me stream 1 million times to pay for yourself and then some? And the
Mhm.
answer is no,
You can't
no,
guarantee. There's no
no,
guarantees. Not what you do.
no. Because I've worked with artists over the last 30 years where I've gotten them no media when I was working for the record label, because they were a 70-year-old crooner from Ireland and no cool hip publication wanted to cover them, but they still sold out 21,000 seats at Maple Leaf Gardens. And I've worked with other artists where I've got volumes and binders full of media, but they just didn't sell anything because they were a media darling more than a general public one, which the music industry is scattered like that throughout. Artists that were just beloved by media, like Nick Lowe, but never
Mhm.
really sold anything. You know, I mean, if you put Paul McCartney or Ringo Starr's media attention for their new albums up against the sales, there's definitely in it's definitely not there. But you still have to take that plunge. Eventually, you're going to need a publicist. Eventually, you're going to need a record label. Eventually, you're going to need a manager. You might as well start as early as possible so you can get to know the game a little bit more.
Eric, how do people find out more about you? What's the website? What are the socials? Where can they catch up with you?
Yeah, they can catch me at that Eric Alper on Twitter and Instagram and Facebook, and also that ericalper.com on the website.
We have been in conversation with that Eric Alper. Eric, thanks so much for being with us.
Thanks, David. This has been great.